Recording in progress.
I now call the General Committee meeting to order. Welcome to General Committee this evening. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So the land disposition matter, Victoria Street and Innisfil Street. It's approved on consent. Agreement with the school board use of facilities.
Hold, please.
Held by Councillor Hamilton. Enhancement of proactive property standards by law enforcement. That's approved. Property standards. That's approved. From the report of the Affordability Committee, motion 22-G-182, referred by General Committee, correspondence from the Allendale Neighbourhood Association. That's approved. Investigate establishing a heritage conservation district, Blake Street and Dundonald Street.
Question? Pardon? Just question on you just said?
Yes.
We're accepting the item for record purposes that it happened at Heritage.
Yes.
Okay.
Seeing none, approved. Heritage planner position. It's approved. The Municipal Heritage Register, 62 High Street. It's approved. Designated and listed properties, plaque policy, Heritage Barrie Committee. That's approved. Heritage Conservation District. That's approved. Staff reports. DEV 001-23, zoning bylaw amendments 651, 59, 65, 669, and 673, Mapleview Drive East, Sobey's Ward 9. Hold. That is held by Councillor Morales. DEV 006-23, municipal street naming for streets in the Mapleview South Innisfil Limited Plan of Subdivision, Ward 10. That's approved. DEV 007-23, Mapleton Avenue stopping prohibition, Ward 6. That's approved. DEV 008-23, Community Improvement Plan Summary Report. That's approved. DEV 009-23, Bill 109 Implementation Update. That's approved. INF 002-23, Water Operations Branch 2022 Drinking Water System Reports.
Hold, please.
Held by Councillor Harris. LCS 004-23, confidential personal information matter, appointment to various advisory committees. Could I have somebody hold that, please? Held by Councillor Ritma. Items for discussion, invitation to present to Council, Lakehead University. That's approved. Invitation to present to Council, Napoleon. That's approved. Invitation to present to Council, Dr. Mike Moffat. That's approved. Invitation to present to Council, Tourism Barrie, consultant for Sadlon Arena expansion.
Hold, please.
Held by Councillor Kungle. Okay, we have now gone through the consent agenda, so we'll move into the business of the evening. And the first hold we have is the agreement with the school board use of facilities. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nettle. I agree with the notion and the principle behind this motion. I just want to make sure I've received some concerns from existing clubs and organizations that currently utilize gym space after school and all weekends, and I've heard that the capacity is already constrained. So I just want to make sure if we pursue this, there's no negative implications and we're not going to be negatively impacting those clubs and organizations that are currently accessing the school gymnasium. So do we have an idea of the current capacity that exists, and if there's additional capacity that would warrant moving forward with creating new partnerships?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hamilton, for the question. With regards to the school board's capacity, when I met with them, they said there is excess capacity. They also said that they do have numerous user groups that use the facilities that we'd have to obviously respect and work around. And I believe that they will be able to obviously give us the best information, but I don't think that's something necessarily that should be negotiated by councillors. I think that's what our public service need to work out with the public service over at the school board. And the other item is that there's some schools that are used every night and there's schools that aren't, right? So I don't anticipate this being a massive issue, but it's obviously something we'll have to manage along the way if there are concerns that arise.
Thank you. That's great. I just want to make sure we can give some sort of reassurances to the folks that are currently utilizing them. Barrie Royal Basketball, I think, had reached out as well. So I think if we can give them some level of assurance that we're not looking to displace anybody, we're just looking to maximize the existing capacity. That's good.
For sure. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, one of the, on that point, Councillor Hamilton, one of the local organizations that's been growing through Shack's World has actually approached and asked to be a partner in what's happening with the school board and the city, which, if there's various organizations that were able to do that, I think it would really help with the intention of the motion, which is to try to make this a community-driven piece rather than just a top-down recreational piece. And I would hope that there would be organizations that are not just into recreation, but also into culture, that would be able to come to the table and be part of that as well, because that's part of our well-rounded community. It's in our strategic plan in terms of access to recreation, access to culture. And I think that the final piece on this for me is that it's really important, and the motion says it's really important that we look at underserviced, underprivileged parts of the city. If there's gaps, those are them. And I can tell you even today, and to Councillor Hamilton's point of a recreational facility in the southeast that we talk about quite often. When I grew up in Mill Creek, if I wanted to go to a recreational facility, it was either the East Bayfield Center, which didn't exist, the Peggy Hill Community Center, which didn't exist, or Allendale, which doesn't have an actual gymnasium, right? And so you can imagine, even today, as you look at it, if they do go to those other recreational facilities, you're quite a bus ride away, and there's a lot of folks in underprivileged areas that don't have access to vehicles, etc. And so if there's ways that we can work with existing infrastructure to help expose team games, culture, whether it's bouncing a basketball or holding a paintbrush or writing poetry or whatever it is, but having those programs in communities, I think that those are hopefully life-changing moments for some people, specifically young people around the city. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Actually, your comments just sparked a question because obviously some of us, if not all of us, have recently been reached out by the former woodshop group. So is the exploration of this is obviously going beyond just the gymnasiums and would explore these other areas like a woodshop in a high school? Is that your intent with this?
Well, I would love to say that I had thought of that in advance, but I have not. But we can certainly, I believe that the motion's wide enough that we can certainly look at it. I think that you're probably, there's probably a little bit more work to do on that one because of the various groups that would be involved in the wood shop and the creative, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a creative space of some kind that various groups were looking for. So maybe we can get them in contact with our city staff as well as with the school board staff.
Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight that, so that way they're not lost in the shuffle. I know they did use a school at one time, and then for whatever reason, stopped using the school location.
If I could just actually from your comment to Ms. McAlpine, is there any way that in the discussions that may or may not be happening soon as the school boards pass their piece of this, that could be one of the subjects that's brought up?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I think your motion is wide enough in scope that certainly could be a discussion point. One of the challenges that the wood shop has experienced is the requirements to meet the fire code based on the type of operation that they're running compared to a traditional high school wood shop. So depending on the scope of their operation, it might not meet the criteria or the existing structure that's in a high school. So.
Thank you, Ms. McAlpine. Are there any other questions or comments from members of committee? Councillor Morales?
Mayor Nuttall, thank you for this. I just wanted to, yeah, I'll put it on the floor as printed. We totally didn't, yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to commend yourself and the seconder of the motion, I believe it was Councillor Courser, on this. It's one of those things that's so simple. We, been here around 8 years, so it's almost like, hey, why didn't you think of it? It's simple. It takes advantage of existing facilities. It doesn't add to capital too much. And if there's another, young child such as yourself in today's generation that can benefit from those synergies, that's great. And I know, Councillor Courser, you've talked about walkable, healthy communities. Again, this is a great no-brainer. Let's see where it goes, and it can either address our needs in the short term, or maybe this becomes a model for the rest of the province. So I don't usually say kudos to every single thing that's passed, but this one is very simple and can be very innovative.
Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I just wanted to take a minute very quickly to reference this so it's not lost, because I read it as a program or in reference to kind of staff coming back and talking about resources required to coordinate the program. And I keep thinking about the great opportunity through some of our committees. So one in general is when we talk about schools, I see this as a beautiful opportunity to explore, through the health unit, we've got the wheeling walking to school programs. We've got signage staff have actually put outside of school areas that say it's going to take you 8 minutes or 5 minutes to wheel or walk. But the hiccup that we kind of saw was, how do we activate students? And I think Councillor Harvey and I had a conversation maybe a couple years ago around some communities build kind of safety villages or have a setup where kids can actually practice riding their bike, maneuvering in traffic around obstacles, hand signals, and doing all of that. And so a gymnasium potentially could be a really great place where we do a pop-up in the spring as kids are maybe taking their bikes, but also back to school. So it ties into, I think, active transportation, and I would believe the committee would be quite interested around a consideration for how we could support maybe something in there with Firebird or activating students around safety on the roads.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's really important. One of the things the school board said in the meeting that we had, which I thought was, you'd think is a no-brainer, but over time, I guess there's such there's so much work going into building the systems that sometimes the basics are forgotten, is that schools be used as hubs for the community. And that's one of the pushes that's coming down from the Ministry of Education right now. And that, I think, falls right in with that, Councillor Kungle, in the sense that if there's opportunities for, as you said, like different types of education, as basic as back to school or even greater than that, I think it's great to see. And as community hubs, like, that's community building, and when you're building a community, you're investing in individuals, right? And all those individuals are the chemical makeup of our community. So I'm super excited. Hopefully this goes in the right direction. You never know, but I think that there is buy-in from both the school board and from the city, and even if we start with just one gymnasium and figure out what works and what doesn't, hopefully we can take those learnings and apply them in the future to both our relationship with the school board as well as our own services that we offer in our recreational facilities. Did I miss anybody on this item? Okay, so I'll call the item for a vote. Those in favor? And it's approved.
Separate report?
Separate report requested by Councilor Morales. The next item that was held by Councilor Morales, and it is DEV 001-23, and it's a zoning bylaw. Councilor Morales, could you put the item on the floor, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. We'll put the item on the floor as printed. My questions are going to go to Ms. Banfield, and we'll see where we go from there. I'll start with this. A grocery store in the southeast of Barrie is much needed. It's the only area of the city that has a singular grocery store. It only has one option. In a normal climate, options and variety and competition is great. In a high inflation environment, it's necessary. So this is not going to be built overnight. I realize that, but this is a step in the right direction. So I'll start with kudos to the applicant and this file. I really like the lower setbacks in the front. That was a no-brainer for myself. We don't like that 1970s design where you have parking in front of the buildings, and we're pushing them more towards. I've seen them look really good in Guelph and some other areas in the GTA, and putting the parking on the inside. Now, beyond that, and a question to Ms. Banfield, could you go over the difference between, so we're approving zoning tonight, but I know I've had some concerns about the access points, the driveways for this. We never want to create collision points or points that collisions are likelier. We want to make sure entries into the proposed development are at controlled intersections, which there seem to be, but not necessarily with their site. It's more neighboring sites. So could you describe, I guess, zoning versus site plan, specifically as it relates to controlled intersections?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Morales. So absolutely, tonight what Council is being asked to consider, General Committee, is really a zoning amendment from agricultural to commercial, and that commercial zoning would facilitate the grocery store development. Following that, site plan approval is required. Staff always ask for a concept plan to accompany zoning, and that's to provide some comfort that the use that they're asking for could actually be supported on the site. There's definitely some additional work that happens between zoning and when we have site plan approval, including, as you mentioned, firming up where the access points are, building locations, all those sorts of things.
And through you, Mayor Nuttall, Ms. Banfield, could you describe what a file would look like if a member of council and I guess ratified through General Committee were to put a hold on a rezoning approval?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Morales. From time to time, Council will see a staff recommendation to approve a zoning bylaw with an H, with a hold symbol. And usually that is when there is potentially a little bit of information that isn't quite firmed up. Yet we still feel comfortable at a staff level recommending the approval to the main land use. And then that provides the applicant the ability to remove the hold, do the work to remove the hold. As a reminder to previous council and just a flag to the new council, removals of holds are really administrative. I say you need to do this, they show me they do, and then we remove the hold. So that has been delegated to staff. But as I said, usually with a hold, it's whether or not there's things that just aren't quite done yet. If staff, in this case, we haven't recommended a hold because we're comfortable with the change in land use from agricultural to commercial.
Perfect, thank you. And if I could get one of the clerk or deputy clerk to throw up what I emailed while I'm talking about this. Members of council, the reason I'm even holding this up is that we always say, why is an intersection so dangerous? We all heard of the doors. Why didn't someone think of this? This is a very small thing, but as we develop the Ward 910 corner, the way this rest of the city has been developed, this is very important. So you'll see up on the slide, that's the green is the subject lands, and there's no proposed stoplight controlled intersection on the site. The proposed ones are further down to the south and further to the west, essentially where that black line runs down, which is coming from Goodwin and then turns into that new street, which actually right now goes through an existing house. So there's lots of floating pieces that we need to get right because, again, we don't want yourselves or any Barrie resident future going, wow, why do you have a disjointed intersection where everybody's trying to get into this shopping area and potentially residential south of the green, and no one flushed it and aligned it. So there's lots of technical questions on the intersection, and Ms. Clerk, if we could just see the other one, which is why I'm bringing this up. And Ms. Ban, there we go. If you could zoom in a little bit. So the white blocks are not part of the rezoning. They're future residential concept, which would have been, it would zoom in a little bit more. A little bit more. Yeah, one more. There we go. So there's a controlled intersection. So there's an uncontrolled entry point at south of Building F, which picture Yonge Street now. Now it's going to be widened, but picture people coming from the south, trying to turn in an uncontrolled intersection. That's a concern. But there is a controlled intersection south of the 8-story tower that's off the screen. Now going to Mapleview, there's a right in on that north side, so around Building B, and if you can't see it, it's just the first building. If you're reading from left to right, there's a right in, but obviously you're going to have people coming from Ward 10 area going west and trying to go into the right in anyway. So that's a potential pinch point that we can mitigate by just having one lights and controlled intersection. So I'm not going to be putting a hold, Ms. Banfield. I appreciate your time and your conversation. There's benefits to holds, and and the applicant has given me confidence, and I trust that staff's judgment that these pinch points can be mitigated through site plan. I think hold is a little bit overzealous, and on this file I'm confident, but I just think this was a very good example with future developments, members of council, that we all get in all of our wards, where if we get design rights, we'll save hundreds of thousands of dollars on speed bumps and lights and emails that we all can be avoided if you take a little minute detail like this and drag it in front of your council and try to explain it on a PowerPoint. So with that, I'll be voting in favor of it, and I look forward to addressing some of these driveway entries with staff and the applicant.
Councillor Hamilton, then we'll have Councillor Harvey after that.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Nettle, again, I'm also quite supportive of this this motion. I do have a question, a point of clarification, and it just builds on what Councillor Morales said in terms of really understanding what's designated to go around this parcel of land here and how that could impact traffic flows and entry points. On page 3, under site and location, bullet number 9, when it says the south, what's to the south of this parcel of the land, it talks about the draft plan. Improved portion of the Rainsong lands will be providing a recreation center, library, and elementary school, in addition to single and semi-detached and townhouse residential uses. Is that still in the works? Is that accurate in terms of what that land is going to be used for to the south of the proposed Sobey's plan?
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Hamilton, yes.
Okay, because I know I will get questions from residents regarding the proposed recreation center being built across the street, because I know there's been questions about whether or not that land has been purchased and whether that is a final and done deal. So maybe just if we can clarify that that is in the current plan.
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Hamilton. I'm sorry, are you talking about the draft plan, like of the adjacent property, or in the capital plan?
So this is referring to the draft plan,
correct?
Which is different than the capital plan, because my understanding is those lands have not actually been purchased. So the draft plan identifies this site as being the location of a new recreation center, library, and elementary school, but the capital plan is slightly different from that in the fact that we actually have not purchased the lands for those amenities, and it might not be located on this corner.
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Hamilton. So ultimately, draft plan approvals come in, and then the applicant works on registering and finalizing those plans, and then registration of the plan is what actually creates the parcel. I think that's what you heard at a previous public meeting. You actually have to register the plan to create the parcel, and these sites are still at the draft plan stage, so they could change, you're correct, because they're not registered yet, but at this point, this is the best information that staff have to share with council and the public at this time.
That's great. I think that's very helpful to clarify to public that it hasn't been registered yet, and that's why I think it's creating some confusion in terms of whether or not that's going to proceed as planned or not. So thank you, Ms. Banfield, for clarifying.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton, and I know that our public service is working hard to find the purchase for the property for the southeast rec center. And so as we are able to get more information on that and finality, then I think that obviously our Southeast councillors and council will be able to announce where and when and how and all of those things.
Yeah, and just to relate it back, I really was looking at it from a traffic and access pattern. I think we have to be aware of what's going to be to the south of that, right? Because that could dictate and inform the placement of lights and intersections. So that was more my question, but obviously I'm also questioning the future rec center. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. I believe Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to Ms. Banfield, just curious why the signalized intersection is further south and at the south end of Phase 2. Is that because of the distance, that it would be less than the 250 meters to be able to move it back up to where it's marked as full turns unsignalized, which is kind of at the bottom of Phase 1? The reason I'm asking this is there's a lot of traffic that's going to be in and out of this Phase 1 plaza once a grocery store opens up.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey. So that was certainly one of the things that that I committed with Councillor Morales to kind of take a look at. All of these kind of points that he's raised tonight and that other councillors are asking about is specifically where the entrances are going to be and where those signalized intersections are going to be, in particular the full moves where there isn't signalized movements. We understand those are a challenge. So we are going to take that away, and I can provide more information after I do that.
Great, thanks. Yeah, obviously it's a concern because we know Yonge Street's only going to get wider and busier, and people trying to make a left turn out of there, I think, is going to be a potential safety hazard moving forward. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just as a quick follow-up, thank you, Ms. Deputy Clerk. Could you move it to the right a little bit, the image? Councillor Harvey, this is a great visual. Right here. Right there, perfect. So bottom right, you see it says 8-story, and if you can't, it's that L shape. If you follow the lines of Yonge Street in front of it, there's an island. So if you've ever come from Newmarket, Innisfil, you'll see that it's a little St. Paul's triangle. The reason they're putting it there, it will be, my assumption is it will be flush with the triangle, whereas if you put the signalized entryway at the south of the commercial corner, it'll be in the middle of the triangle. So you're kind of right. It'll be close to the intersection and in the middle of a triangle, and it'll just be a mess. So I understand the intent of putting the signalized flush with the triangle, which actually raises a great question. I wish in a perfect world the applicant would have brought the rezoning of the commercial and the residential all at once, even if they didn't intend on developing the residential right away, because then we could have formalized like all these intersections, and we wouldn't be in this piecemeal. Well, we'll promise to put a intersection here if you promise to do it this way. So unfortunately, because they didn't include Phase 2 in their rezoning, we're not able to formalize that little corner that we're seeing.
Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, actually, just a point of clarity, just because on page 17 of the staff report, Phase 2 looks totally different than what you're showing up there on the screen. I assume this is an updated version then of what Phase 2 could look like?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, this was a document flipped from staff. I think staff could provide clarity on the block plan.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey. So 100% what I provided to Councillor Morales today was more like detailed architectural plans, whereas again in the staff report we do try to keep it at a conceptual level. As well, I just did want to, while I have the microphone, take the point to talk about, through a site plan application, even if they're not coming through with the residential portion, if there are future concerns that we all have as a staff and council and public, we're able to, because they own the property, we're able to put other clauses in there for future anything kind of thing, so we can work with them on that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, Councillor Morales, thank you for holding this and speaking to it. I know it's obviously in your ward, but I think it's really important because it hasn't always been the case, and the traffic flows there are going to be incredibly high, and so thank you for that, and I hope that the developers has heard the concerns not just from you, but from other members of council. And we'll be able to work with them to make sure that the traffic flows as easily as possible there. Councillor Corser, yeah? No, it's never too late, not unless we voted on it.
With the conversation about the new residential developments that are going around here and the potential of the rec center right across the road, I use the term strollerable when it comes to Holly and the library set up and the grocery store there. Is there going to be any consideration about that walkables, using a stroller, all these sort of active transportation walkable areas? Is there going to be consideration built into this, more so than maybe previously, considering that that area would be highly if it was developed properly, it would be highly walkable. It would be one of those neighborhoods that could truly be used in that sense. Is there any consideration of this kind of density and with the use of the area that would change how these roads are laid out or how wide they are or the bike paths or anything on that?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. So absolutely, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. Obviously, we take a look at it at a staff level through our master plans and how we plan our roads, like our spine infrastructure, I guess, if you will. And at the same token, internally, again, when the site plan comes in and we take a look at it, we'll also be taking a look at pedestrian pathways and crosswalks and to get to all the different buildings. And then, again, there's obviously accessibility standards that we have to meet and businesses have to meet as well. So it kind of all puts together to have that lens looked at for sure.
I just thought that maybe this would be an excellent opportunity to really showcase a walkable area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. I think just before we go to, I see two other hands, before we go to the others, there was a set of principles that were approved whenever I was last on council, 2 or 3 councils ago, with regards to the both the Salem and the Hewitt secondary plan, with regards to how they would be laid out, active transportation being a key, walkways being a key. So I think those principles would be part of the decision making and items that the developer would actually have to take into consideration just in the creation of their plans. And I just want to make sure, Mr. Anfield, if you could just confirm that that is in fact still the case, because I haven't been around here in a very long time.
To you, Mayor Nuttall, absolutely. It's a combination, certainly, of, as I said, like what we do in our own work, as well as the work that the developers do on their own subdivisions, as well as there's all sorts of off-trail networks and those sorts of things. So 100%, it's multi, and in particular, paying attention to where the schools are and the public spaces and parks and all those things, where people actually want to be, for sure.
Amazing. And maybe Councillor Kungle, I think one of the opportunities that you could take out of this is maybe looking at those secondary plans and having your committee look at those secondary plans as they're coming through to make sure that the goals of the active transportation committee are actually being fulfilled inside of those plans as well. And then it's not just at a general committee meeting on the spot that we're actually able to look at that up front. So I would look to that advice from your committee as well. I believe Councillor Morales and Deputy Mayor Thompson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Morales.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I don't want to make a habit of speaking after you've kind of closed the loop, but Councillor Corser, great question. Very tangibly, so one of the variances we're giving them is that they can have awnings encroach 1 meter. So one of the reasons they wanted awnings and they wanted to push the building to the front is to make it the stroller test or the walkable, whatever you want to call it, that it becomes a warm space. And the reality is, and this is not blaming anybody, it's just planning standards have changed. In the 70s, you put the parking lot in the front, you put the building in the back. Now you put the building in the front, you put the parking lot in the back or in between, while still having crime prevention through design measures. So that's check mark. Awnings, more inviting, less of a random grass that is intrusive. And when you push the buildings to the front, believe it or not, cars slow down because it feels like a slower road. If you're driving a county road, we're going to drive slower than if we're driving on Dunlop Street. And we're going to drive slower than if there's patios on down the street with parked cars. So pushing buildings, that's why I want to give the applicant kudos. And I said way back in a meeting before, this is very European design. It was a silly comment. Like, I'm not saying a strip plaza is European design, but pushing buildings up to the front. There's a great example. I'll send you later where in Guelph, it's done. It's on Google Maps. You can see it, and they're pushed up. And one of the things towards getting closer to passing the stroller test is if we, right now, as proposed, we have a right in, and then we have an unsignalized, so no traffic light entryway on the north, and an unsignalized one on the south. That discourages people from doing the strolling test, the walking test, because you have cars that can come in at any point in time. You have to check your shoulder because there's no controlled intersection, so it reduces the pedestrian level of safety. And also, the old designs was Mapleview, which is going to be essentially a giant highway, a Strode. But now it has that multi-use path, which is basically a separated bike lane that combines the sidewalk. And it's on the north side of Mapleview right now, not on the south side, because you save the efficiency. You just make one giant pathway instead of two sidewalks and a painted bike lane, which you and I know is nothing. So I believe that's going to be extended from the existing area on Mapleview, and once this gets developed, it'll be on the north side. So there's lots of check marks for the stroller test, and which is, again, I would have never held this and talked on technical designs if it wasn't important, not only for this development, but also I've already had questions from other members of council. Oh, like good catch on this, and like how's it going to affect us? So we just want to make sure we get it right. I never want a resident, whether it's Ward 9 or feature subdivision, to go, man, how did somebody not think to align these two intersections that are 20 meters from each other? So we're getting to there.
Okay, so I will, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll now call the vote. All those in favor? And it's approved. We will move next to Councillor Harris on the Water Operations Branch 2022 Drinking Water Systems Reports. Councillor Harris, if you can put it on the floor and then speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put it on the floor as printed. And first off, thank you, staff. We received a 4-page summary, a 69-page report, which also included on page 38 the Taking Care of Your Drinking Water, a quick guide for members of municipal council. And in that guide, it talks about our duty, which includes legal consequences if we don't exercise our duty well. And in that, it reminds us to be informed and to be vigilant. And in the report, as we've seen, thankfully, with over 2,900 samples collected, there were 0 adverse water incidents in Barrie in 2022. There were 0 findings of non-compliance of regulatory requirements and 0 recommendations reported under the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Final inspection rating was 100%, pardon me. So with all that noted, and there's a lot in this report and lots of things that show up in water and that are managed in water. So I just, I think what I did last year was raise a glass of water to the City of Barrie staff for doing a wonderful job of managing our water. So first and foremost, I'll do that. And second, is there something you would like us to know, Mr. Sunday, and maybe through you, Mayor Nuttall, to council about the water report, about the effort that goes into keeping our water at this quality and with this kind of rating? It's I don't know if it's exceptional, whether that's the standard of water, which is wonderful if that's what it is, but we know across Ontario we've had our events, and Walkerton looms always in our minds. So thank you for your work, and if you have anything you want us to know tonight about the report, we'd be happy to hear it.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harris. First of all, thanks for those compliments. You know, as you mentioned, this report kind of summarizes the exemplary performance of our water operations team. Overall, it was a very successful year. The team led by Sherry Demert here. Sherry is the Director of Infrastructure, so a lot of the compliments go to Sherry and her team. So you're quite right. There were 0 adverse water quality incidents, and that's been you know, usually sometimes we do have 1 or 2 incidents, so the fact that we had 0, I think that's a great record. On top of that, we had 2 audits, or 1 inspection by the Ministry of the Environment, which did not find any non-conformances. We had an external audit, which also, what they do is they audit our quality management systems, and they found 0 non-conformances. In addition to that, we have a couple of internal audits that we do every year to identify improvements, and those audits did come up with some improvements we've implemented. So overall, I think, it was a great report and a great performance. In terms of what can council do, I think, first of all, the report is presented for your information so that you have the assurance that the team is doing everything they can to provide the city with safe drinking water. I think a few months ago there was a financial report that recommended funding levels. So I think one of the things council could do is maintain those funding levels, because those funding levels ensure the long-term sustainability, both of the quality of the water, but also the financial sustainability. More importantly, I think the interest from council is very appreciated. I know a few councillors have toured our systems, and I think that allows us to share to council the importance of the system, and also, the intricacies involved in operating the system. So I hope that answers your question, but I do want to see if Sherry DeMert would like to add anything to what I just said.
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Harris, I just wanted to add that it's the second year in a row that the team has gotten 100%. So kudos to their hard work. They are an amazing team of hardworking individuals, and it's people's neighbors that are running the water plant, the water system. So people can have confidence that it's being taken care of. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have nothing further, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep. Councillor Corser.
Last week, I had the absolute privilege of doing the Barrie Surface Water Treatment Plant tour. And I suggest for anyone who would be interested in checking out how our water is kept safe and clean for everyone, I definitely suggest that you go for the public tour that comes up once in a while. And the professionalism and the building itself and all the nerdy stuff I love so much was absolutely wonderful. And I'd just like to thank all staff for having me, and it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. Any other comments? Councillor Kungl?
Maybe just in echoing the compliments, but also saying, while we're celebrating that, this is an amazing public health service, too, that the city has a direct hand in. And so I think that's incredibly important when we talk about wellness of our residents, and then also the protection of the quality of water. And Mr. Iranian Sundaran, you did talk a bit about the importance of the financial investment in this. And I noted in the report that you did expend 98% of the operating budget. And so I just wanted to check in to say, has anything changed there? Is there anything that you may be coming back with that's different than what you need from an operating support, financial support within a year? Or are we good on how we funded it to date? Or is there anything that we need to look at before the intake period for the next budget?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungl. I think the budgets for the current year were developed, I think, with making sure we had sufficient budget to operate and maintain. There's always a few surprises, including inflation. Some of the prices of chemicals have placed cost pressures on us. But our budgets for 2023 did account for those. And occasionally there may be certain breakdowns that we did not anticipate, even though we do have a pretty good asset management system, and those can provide some cost surprises. But overall, I would say the system is well funded. And also this year, we did increase the funding in accordance with our the water financial plan that was approved last year. So I would say there shouldn't be anything surprising that would come up between now and the next budget period. I think we're in pretty good shape. Other than cost pressures that we may see for some of the chemicals and other services that we use. But having said that, Sherry's team is working on a plan to reduce electricity costs. And if we are successful, we are hoping that starting next year, we'll see the benefits of some of that. So.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote on the matter. Those in favor? And it's approved. We've held LCS, but it's a confidential information matter, so we'll deal with that later on in the evening. And we'll now go to the invitation to present to Council Tourism Barrie Consultant for Sadlon Arena Expansion. Councillor Kungl.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I thought I would just bring it up now while it was of hand. So if I could put the item on the floor, please. And then I'll proceed to basically just say, I didn't believe that this was a facility, and I could have missed it, that we had an orientation tour of. And I didn't know, as we start having more conversations in the arena has been part of capital conversations and otherwise, depending on the timing of this, I was thinking it would be beneficial if we could actually arrange a tour. And I know that has a dynamic around staff time and also around the number of us that take tours. But I would love to make sure that we're appreciating this fully. So I'd love to take a tour that's a little bit more in the guts and in the exterior of the perimeter to fully appreciate the facility. So if I may, if that doesn't fall to the clerk to arrange, could I redirect that question to Ms. McAlpine?
Thank you. Through Mayor Nuttall to Councillor Kungl. Certainly, we'd be happy to arrange tours for members of council of the facility. If you have not been through the facility, particularly, most people don't get to see the inner workings of the facility. If a majority of council was present, it would need to be scheduled as a general committee meeting, but the challenges with coordinating schedules, likely we would need to do that in a couple groups to ensure everyone's schedules could be met. So that wouldn't necessarily require a general committee meeting for that.
Great, thank you. So it was really just a comment to make sure we were aware of that, and if that could be facilitated, then I would encourage, if possible, it'd be great to have that context before we have some of the conversations around the facility. So I am in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kungl. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, and Ms. McAlpine, if you could then organize and send out some dates with your team for members of council to be able to go through the facility. All those in favor? And it is approved. There are no information items, so we'll move on to inquiries. Deputy Mayor Thompson, do you have any inquiries this evening? You do not? Any other inquiries around the table this evening? Councilor Morales?
Sorry, I think I put my hand up too quickly. Inquiries on circulation list or general inquiries?
General inquiries.
None at this time. Oh, sorry, to staff regarding garbage pickup. Sorry. To the appropriate staff member, could we just provide some comments, I guess, to members of council and anyone watching at home where the current update is in terms of garbage pickup? I think most people understand at this point some of the delays, but I think since this changes by the hour almost, I think it'd be appropriate to get this.
Your Worship and members of committee, we started off the week about a day and a half behind, and we've communicated the challenges. So it was driver shortages, the holiday, and the weather delays. I'm happy to report that we're only a day behind now. So the hope is that we finish up Wednesday tomorrow, and we actually start moving into the Thursday as well. The contractor again today brought in an additional 3 trucks for recycling pickup. So there is no delay on the garbage and organics, but the recycling is still a little bit behind. They will continue to bring in extra staff, extra trucks, And, our hope is to be totally finished by Saturday midday. So they are working towards it, and we do apologize for any delays, but they're working on it, and we are meeting with their staff on a daily basis, twice daily, to get updates. So, we are staying on them and trying to get things moving along as quick as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Frary. No apologies needed. Garbage pickup is never personal. Do we have any built-in clawback clauses in our contract with this service provider for non-performance or delay?
Your Worship and members of the committee, yes, they are built into the contract, and we do review any delays, and if there are justifications for liquidated damages, that they will be applied. But as I said, we're trying to work with the contractor and get through these delays.
Perfect, and thank you for affording me the time, Mayor Nettle. It's a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but I have residents now asking me, before I found out there was going to be likely another delay in Ward 9 tomorrow, should I even bother putting it out Thursday? And I think it's important that, yes, things happen, and there's many factors into this, but when you start losing the confidence of residents, the trust, the faith, it's tough to get back. So it might just be on this one thing, but I think, obviously, we're being diligent, and I have no criticism towards our own staff, but residents expect the garbage to be picked up on time.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Councillor Harvey.
Actually, I was going to ask the same question, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other questions around the table? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. Deputy Mayor Thompson?
I have none.
You have none. Are there any other announcements around the table? Seeing none, I will roll on to the many announcements that I have. So I'd like to proclaim March 2023 as It Starts month, marking a month-long campaign led by the County of Simcoe, taking a proactive step towards addressing racism and discrimination and embracing acceptance, inclusion, equity, and diversity in our community. I would also like to proclaim March 8th as International Women's Day, encouraging all residents to support initiatives that help to end gender-based violence. Online registration for Recreation and Culture Services 2023 spring programs and summer camps will open on Tuesday, March 7th. Residents can log into their play.barrie.ca accounts to browse program offerings and save choices to their wish list to be ready when registration opens. For more information and recreation opportunities, please visit play.barrie.ca. The Recreation and Culture Department has a full calendar of events and programming for the month of March, including the Hockey Helps the Homeless game on March 3rd at the Peggy Hill Team Community Center, theater shows, March break camps, St. Paddy's Day Bash, senior activities, and arena events. For a detailed list, go to barrie.ca/recreation programs. Barrie celebrates history during Heritage Week. February 20th to 26th, Heritage Week is an opportunity for residents and communities to reflect on contributions to Ontario history, learn how heritage is conserved, promoted, and commemorated, and how we might shape the future. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/heritage. The award-winning Brightening Barriers exhibition is returning to the city of Barrie this summer. The Brightening Barriers project pairs artists with downtown Barrie businesses to turn patio fencing from barrier into canvas. The City of Barrie, along with the Barrie Public Art Committee, invites proposals from local and regionally based artists to participate. Submissions will be accepted up until March the 6th. For more information or details, please visit barrie.ca/publicart. The City of Barrie is also seeking proposals from local artists for digital designs that will be used to wrap up 3 traffic cabinets. The submissions deadline is March the 20th at 5 p.m. Visit barrie.ca/publicart for more information. The city's annual I Love Barrie contest launched is now open for entries. Students from kindergarten to grade 12 can express why they love Barrie by sharing artwork, a short story, or a photo. The contest deadline is March 31st at 4:30 p.m. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/ILoveBarrie. A reminder that overnight on-street parking and waterfront parking restrictions are still in effect until March 31st. For more information, visit barrie.ca/snow or barrie.ca/parking. Tomorrow night, March 2nd, the Affordability Committee will be meeting at 5:30 p.m. And then next week on March 8th, the Infrastructure and Community Investment Committee will be meeting at 4:30 p.m., followed by General Committee at 6 p.m. and City Council at 7 p.m. or immediately following the General Committee meeting. The circulation list from February the 15th. Are there any items, are there any questions or referrals? Councillor Ritma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number C2, which is a letter from the town of West Gwillimbury, and that has to do with Lake Simcoe and the Freshwater Action Plan. And Councillor Hamilton and I have put together a item for discussion on that, and I would like to refer that item, the C2, to Finance Committee for consideration. The federal government has, since 2000 and something, early on, been having a freshwater fund, but the money has often not been spent. And the federal government currently has a commitment for $40 million for freshwater lakes, and Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and all the municipalities around the lake are putting together this letter to the federal government, encouraging them to actually spend the money that's in the fund on Lake Simcoe. So my request is that we refer this to Finance Committee and that staff for that committee draft an appropriate resolution that we could pass at that time.
There's a referral motion on the floor. It's not debatable. All those in favor? It's approved. Are there any other items on the circulation list? Councillor Nixon.
Yes, I would like to refer C3 230301 to the Affordability Committee for further discussion, and not tomorrow's meeting, but the following on, which I believe is May 22nd. March 22nd, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. There's a referral motion on the floor. It's not debatable.
Procedural question?
Yes, Councillor
If this
Morales.
is referred, could the author of the letter speak at this reference committee if called upon by the chair?
I believe that would be up to the chair of the committee.
But they're technically, the chair is technically able to call them to speak? Okay.
All those in favor? It's approved. Are there any other items on the circulation list? Councillor Kungle?
I have a couple just as a point of clarification for process, and I think the one is related to the Allendale Transit Mobility Hub. Just
A2230301.
thank you. And that one-page document by staff, and thank you for bringing this forward. So I guess my question to Ms. McAlpine or Ms. James Reed, there's 3 short lists there around potential names for the facility, and it did talk a bit about getting feedback from the public. I was wondering about the process behind this one-pager as to, has that been done? Is there a time frame? And or is there anything we have at hand now to share with residents about engaging that process, or is that coming through a future communication?
Thank you, Councillor Kungle, for the question. Yes, this was the first communication, obviously, that we would do to you as members of council. There is going to be a presentation next Wednesday at committee on this project as well. And then we will be doing a public consultation through our Building Barrie platform, and so you'll see all our normal promotion of that so that we can really engage the community and hear their feedback on these proposed names.
That's great, thank you. No further questions on that circulation list item. It's lovely to see residents being empowered to be able to participate in naming a facility. I do have another question tied to the circulation list, and I believe that's through to Ms. McAlpine or through to Dan Bell, and that is regarding the summer programs, and in particular I had a question about the fee assistance. So I'm going to just look for the reference here. If anyone wants to help me and reference that, thank you. 84230301. Thank you. And that one, there's 2 that are similar, but this one is regarding the actual programming and events. It's actually A5 230301. That's the Recreation and Culture Services Spring Programs and Summer Camp Registration. So it's great to see that we actually provide a rec access for low income around being able to participate in summer camps, and in general then taking full advantage of what we have to offer for all residents regardless of income. I didn't know through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Ms. McAlpine or Mr. Bell, is there any timeline around families registering for rec access based on the timelines of camps that are coming up? And in general, I'm getting some questions about, can families just go into a rec center and make that application? Or is it better to do it online or by phone, depending on what information you need to validate low income for free access to the programming?
Through your Mayor Nuttall to Councillor Kungle, the Rec Access Program is available 365 days a year. So people can submit applications at any time. We will approve them. There is a process that they need to submit an application along with the appropriate documentation, and then they are approved, and the process involves providing them a free rec pass, whether it's for an individual or a family application, as well as each child within a family receives $150 credit towards the registration cost of any program, including summer camps.
That's amazing, and I want to thank you for facilitating that, and I'm hoping this helps to maybe put that out there in the public for media and for members of council, if we can share that with our constituents and highlight that in compliment, because I'm even hearing that there's still a little awareness, and I know we do an effective job on getting the message out there, but if we can amplify it in any way. Coming out of COVID, I know we had different issues from a HR standpoint around even having camp counselors and that piece. So knowing that we should be, I believe, forecasting very full complement to our camps, and this is a really high demand area for families, if we could help make sure that people know that there's no restriction based on affordability.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Kungle. And Ms. James Reid, is there any way that your team can maybe double, I know you've already done like videos in the past and different items, if we can just try to double down on information. And I know one of the other things that we were trying to do with regards to committees, which I think has been very successful based on some of the reading I did previously, was trying to get the information out into Facebook groups that exist out in the community, into non-traditional modes of communication. Is that something that we can do with this as well?
Certainly, yes, Mayor Nuttall and members of the General Committee, we can. And we did see a very successful campaign doing that for the call for the committee, so we could mirror that. And certainly promoting this important program right now is really timely with the rec programming opening as well.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Kungle, for highlighting that, and thank you to staff for running such a incredible program for that just provides opportunity, and it's awesome to see. I actually have, there's two items. The first item, I was wondering if somebody could refer the Development Services Memorandum from Ms. Banfield with regards to it's A3 from March 1st, which is to do with the item that was previously referred by Councillor Nixon to the same Affordability Committee for the March meeting. For Skyine.
Okay, could we have both items referred then?
Absolutely, it's non-debatable. All those in favor? It's approved. And I'll hand you your laptop back here, Tara. Yeah, thank you. I actually wanted to ask some questions about, it was A1230301, I believe. This is from March 1st. The results that we're seeing in terms of applications received over the last year. Ms. Banfield, one of the items that stood out to me is that in 2021 we had a total of 370 applications. In 2022 and 22 we had 317, or about a 15% or 16% reduction. Is that something that we're seeing tailing off at the end of the year when we see the quarter-by-quarter results, or is it something that was consistent throughout the year that led to that lower amount?
Mayor Nuttall, so, I mean, obviously, it's hard to predict kind of when applications come in. We know that the latter part of last year with the municipal election, that's very standard for applications to drop. Obviously, applicants don't want to kind of get caught doing something for one council and that kind of thing. So that wasn't necessarily unusual, and we do kind of see usually kind of just before a lot of the development community take Christmas vacation, we get a lot of applications in kind of like mid-December. NQ3 also often encapsulates the summer, so it is traditionally a little bit weaker, I guess, in terms of application numbers as people are taking holidays. So I think the combination, in particular last year, of just general summer, and then at the same token too, when councils don't meet as well, so much of what we do is generated on council cycles, as you know, and when we can have public meetings. So I think that a whole bunch of those things kind of factored into those later year statistics that you saw in 2022.
Thank you. And the second item I just wanted to ask about was the next table down. It was 132 applications approved in 2022. They're dispersed through the year, but there's a lot approved to the end of the year in comparison with the previous quarters. Almost double, actually, in Q4 over Q3. With regards to 132 applications being approved, but 317 being received, are our approved applications consistent year over year? And I assume some of the applications received don't result in applications approved maybe ever. Maybe they don't have all of the required information, but are the approvals in line with previous years, and are the percentage of approvals versus applications received in line with previous years?
Mayor Nuttall, absolutely. If you take a look at kind of all the other years, that you're actually looking at about on average, a 30% application to approval rate, and that's pretty consistent in the last kind of reporting years for sure. Again, kind of that latter push for some of the approvals also related to applications wanting to get a decision with the previous council as well. So it is pretty standard. I think what's interesting, I find interesting anyhow, about these types of statistics is you kind of see where we start the process with pre-consultation applications, and you see those are always really high because there's a whole bunch of people kind of coming in and, let's do this and let's do that. And then kind of when they see kind of some potentially the policy regime, they're like, okay, well, I need to kind of go back to the drawing board. But you can kind of see how the applications move through the process, where from pre-consultation to land use, then through to site plan and subdivision. And then, as I said, obviously some of the smaller types of applications like consents and minor variances.
So what I noticed, and I know it didn't sound like it was going to be a very positive, but I wanted to highlight a positive, which is if you look at the last 2 years, in 2021, we had 110 approved out of 370, right, which would be a little below that 30% marker. But in 2022, it was 132 out of 317, or 41.6%, which is a marked increase. And so I just wanted to recognize that, because obviously a lot of work is being put in on the process side to try to streamline things, and we've heard the message from the province. We don't necessarily agree with it all, but we've heard the message from the province, and it appears, based on the results, that it's being there's process reforms being instituted, and I just wanted to recognize that and highlight it and say that is a very marked increase. It's about a 50% increase in output based on approvals. So thank you. Are there any other questions or comments regarding our circulation list? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to have to go back to my notes before we leave to make sure I say the right things here and don't get us into trouble. So the confidential items, we have one staff report that's going to be discussed in closed session concerning confidential personal information matters, appointments to various advisory committees. Could I get a motion to move into closed session? It's moved by Councillor Harvey and seconded by Councillor Hamilton. All those in favor? It is approved. So we will reconvene in the Sir Robert Barrie room.